Yay, No Polyps is the 13th episode of the 7th season of Two and a Half Men. This is directed by James Widdoes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And I rather enjoyed this one. I thought this one had some pretty interesting moments. It starts off with Chelsea and Charlie in bed. Charlie suggests they fly out to meet her parents, and Charlie agrees, rolls over, and then remembers he has an appointment. Obviously, he does not, but he tells Chelsea that he has a colonoscopy. And he might have been able to get away with this because he told the plan to Alan. He was going to take Alan to the movies. Of course, he was going to pay instead of going to this colonoscopy. But Chelsea said that she'd take Charlie. She insisted she'd take Charlie. So Charlie has to get a colonoscopy. And he's in the kitchen and is basically begging for an appointment. Berta's response to all of this was brilliant. We had some funny lines from Berta that I really enjoyed. Alan seemed to be quite enjoying it. The only person who wasn't, needless to say, was Charlie. He then flushes his system and goes to the appointment. And on the one hand, it's a very funny scene. On the other, I think they should have kept the suspense for a tiny bit longer. Because Charlie's at the appointment, he's in his gown, he's about to be wheeled through to the other room. And just as Charlie is being wheeled out of the room, Chelsea tells him that since they couldn't go to her parents, she is flying her parents into them, and he's a liar. So basically, she knew there was no colonoscopy, and she's kind of killing two birds with one stone. She gets to have Charlie meet her parents, and she gets to get her own back on Charlie for lying, which I kind of think is fair enough. But this is the bit where I think maybe they should have kept the reveal just a little bit longer, because after that, Charlie and Chelsea go home. They open the door to a tremendous fanfare, which was a lot of fun, and that's where we get the "Yay, No Polyps" quote. And then her parents are also there. And I feel like they should have kept the reveal until then. Yes, the scene at the clinic or the hospital, wherever they were, was funny, but at the same time, having Charlie not learn about the parents until they were standing right there, and also, of course, us as the viewer not learning that, I just think that reveal would have been a little funnier, and it would have kept it a secret another probably less than a minute. So I think that would have been better. What we got was good, but I think it could have been more entertaining. And here we have Tom and Martha, played by Stacy Keach and Meagen Fay, and they're interesting, unlikable characters. And I've mentioned this many times before, I don't like Chelsea and I have no valid reason for it. She's a very nice, kind, generous person. Even in this episode where Charlie has lied to her, yes, she's got her own back, but she's not seemingly holding a grudge. She's not ignoring Charlie. She's not being cold with him. She's still being absolutely brilliant. So I don't know why I don't like her. I think I just find her very boring. But the point I'm trying to make is that while I don't care for her as a character, she is genuinely a very likeable personality, whereas her parents are very unlikable, very problematic. Her father is using very unacceptable language, and we learn that her mother said, well, and I quote, "We don't care for the freeways and Mexicans," which is not great, and also that she was offended by having a black pilot, or I think they use the phrase coloured pilot, which is just, it's very clear very quickly that they're very problematic individuals, and it's a miracle Chelsea turned out the way she did. The men then go to the bar, Charlie, Alan, and Tom, Chelsea's father. And while they're there, her father makes some unkind comments. Well, kind of unkind, more of a just, mostly an observation, but a very negative observation, I guess, of two gay men at the bar. But then he remarks that actually they look really, really happy. And the next thing we know, Charlie and Alan are very confused because Tom goes over to them and is having a really great time. And we find out, or it turns out, that her father is gay. And there's this man he's basically wanted to be with his entire life. And obviously he wasn't. They both went their separate ways. They both got married, had families. And in a way, it's kind of emotional. That because he was brought up in a time when, well, to be honest, I say this speaking now in 2025, but I think even when this episode aired, which would have been 2010, even then I feel like attitudes were quite different, but certainly thinking decades before that, it was a time when certainly for him to come out as gay would have just been so problematic. So in a way, yes, he's had all of these horrible things to say, and that's not acceptable, and it doesn't excuse those things. But in a way, it's kind of emotional because he's had to deny that part of himself, presumably because of how society would respond. And that gives us a different look at the character. We never get that different perspective with Chelsea's mother. It seems that she is just not a nice person, whereas Tom doesn't have valid excuses for being nasty, but it's clear that he's been dealing with a lot of problems, a lot of emotional issues, and maybe a lot of mental health issues, because denying who you are must be incredibly challenging. And to not only deny who you are, but also to deny your true love, to not allow yourself that possibility. And I feel like it gives us a different look at the character, which I thought was quite fascinating. And well, then it's the middle of the night and we hear Chelsea's parents arguing, and it's very clear that he's decided he's not going to live a lie anymore. And I have to say, that must be really difficult, but also very freeing. Very freeing for him to finally reveal who he is and not hide it anymore. Very difficult to end a marriage after so many decades. Also very difficult for Chelsea's mother, because I'm assuming that she never expected anything. And for this to come out of the blue would be quite difficult. So it's a happy thing, but it's a difficult thing as well. And that's basically how we end things. Charlie's happy that basically the heat is off of him now, because the colonoscopy lie is kind of not quite as important as Chelsea's parents actually breaking up. So that's how we end things. It's definitely quite an interesting episode. I think the character of Tom is quite a well-written character. The character of Martha, not so much, but I think in a way that's intentional. We're not meant to dig deeper into her. We're not meant to see different layers to her character. That's not the point of that character. I think the point for her is to just genuinely be a nasty person, whereas Tom's clearly been dealing with a lot. So very interesting. I'd say probably unpredictable. I remember, I've seen this episode multiple times, but as I've mentioned before, it had been quite a while since I sat down and watched 2.5 Men, and there were bits that I remember, there were bits that I don't. This one, I could remember generally what happened. I couldn't remember a lot of the specifics, but I feel like it probably would be quite unpredictable. So it's a thought-provoking episode. It's certainly quite interesting. Charlie learning that Chelsea knew it was a lie was funny, but I do think it would have been funnier if maybe they could have done a double whammy. They could have revealed that she knew it was a lie just as he was being wheeled away, because he's still going to get a colonoscopy for no reason, because he doesn't need to keep up the lie once she knows that it's a lie. So that could have been funny. And then they could have revealed the parents at the house. So we actually could have had two, I guess, shock reveals, if you like, back to back within the space of a minute. And I think that would have been stronger. Yes, so instead of doing all of the reveal at the house, they could have actually split them up, and it would have made it even better. So what we got was good. I think it could have been better, but I still enjoyed it. It's a very thought-provoking episode. Some very unhelpful attitudes, but also some very interesting insights into certain characters and why they may have those attitudes. So all things considered, I'd say Yay, No Polyps is a really decent episode of 2.5 Men.